Hi everyone, my name is Sanjeev. In this video, I will demo how to configure mutual TLS for a private space ingress controller in CloudHub 2.0. I will configure both Keystore and Truststore in TLS Context. Keystore will be used for server authentication. Client will authenticate the server, and Truststore will be used for client authentication. Server will authenticate the client. For one-way TLS context and custom domain configuration, you can watch my previous video on CloudHub 2.0. In this video, I will demo how to encrypt inbound traffic to the private space using mutual authentication configuration. Let's start the demo. I have logged into the Anypoint platform. I have a private space name my ps, my private space practice 01. And here I will go to the domains and TLS. Here I can create the TLS context. I will click the create TLS context. For TLS context, I need a public certificate, private key. This is required for one-way TLS. For mutual TLS configuration, I also need to configure Truststore. So I will create these files. I will create the public certificate, private key, and I will also create the Truststore. So here are my notes. First, I will create the public certificate private key for server TLS configuration. This is you will configure in CloudHub 2.0 private space. So I will create the PAM file and I will configure these files in TLS context. So this is required for server side TLS configuration, and that we will configure in CloudHub 2.0 private space. I'm using here OpenSSL. I'm using this request dash new key command, and this command is using configuration file. So let me show you the configuration file. Here is the server configuration. Here I am providing the request distinguished name, and here is the detail country name India, state Delhi, locality New Delhi, organization name Sanjeev Inc., organization unit IT, common name I'm using wildcard certificate, wildcard domain. With the wildcard I can create the subdomain. So I'm using star.sanjeevtripathi.in. I have vanity domain with the name sanjeevtripathi.in. I purchased this domain, so I'm going to use this for common name. So I'm going to run this command to generate the private key and the public certificate. I'll go to the command line, paste the command, I will run it. I got the error because I'm in the wrong directory. I should be in the custom TLS Truststore directory. Let me run it again. Okay, now this command ran successfully. Let me check the folder. And you can see that we just got two files at 5:55. Right now 5:55, and we got the file on 5:54. So here is the private key and here is the public key. We will use these files to configure the TLS context. Here I will use the public certificate. Here I will use the private key. But for Truststore, I also need the client Truststore. So for that, I will create the client store and server Truststore using these commands. So I will run one by one. This will generate the client private key. I'm using OpenSSL command. Let me run this. So we got the client private key. Now I will run this command. This command will use this private key that we just generated, and this is algorithm and certificate expiration days, and it will create the public certificate. And this command is using configuration file. So let me show you the configuration file. Here is the client configuration. Request distinguished name, and here country name is India, state Delhi, locality New Delhi, organization I'm using ABC Inc., organization unit name IT, common name ABC. Let me change to abcinc.in. So common name is abcinc.in. In server side, I'm using the wildcard certificate, wildcard common name star.sanjeevtripathi.in. Here I'm using the abcinc.in. This is representing the server certification generated using this configuration will go to the TLS context side, and this will be used to generate the certificate for the client's Keystore. So let me go to my notes. So this one will generate the client certificate using this configuration and using this private key that we just created. Let me run this command. Okay. So we got the client certificate here in the PAM format. So this client certificate will be used as a Truststore file in here in the Truststore configuration, and this will have the client detail. We have the all files that we need. We have a private key, server private key, server public certificate, and we have the client certificate that we'll use as a Truststore. So we can configure this side here in TLS server side. So we are going to configure this TLS context for this private space ingress controller. Let me give a name, mutual TLS C1. Public certificate, I will use public certificate. We got the domain name star.sanjeevtripathi.in. That's what we configured here, this value, and that's what we are noticing there. Now I will choose the private key. This is the private key. Now I will use the Truststore. So I will use the client certificate PAM file. Okay, this is showing previous value. So let me delete this. I think this file is not saved, so I have to save this file. Now I will run the command again. So I will run this command again to generate this client cert. Now we got it 602, and configuration file is saved on 601. So this should have the correct value. Let me go there, add the certificate again. Let me add again client cert. Let me refresh it. Okay, we got the value, but because we refreshed it, all these value gone away. So let me put again. Name of the TLS context is mTLS C1. Public certificate. This is public certificate file. I got the star.sanjeevtripathi.in private key. I'm using private key, this one, and we have already uploaded the Truststore abcinc.in. So we got the correct name this time. We got the name that is here, abcinc.in. So we have provided the public certificate, private key, and for client authentication, we provided a Truststore file, and we got the client detail. So server will authenticate the client based on this Truststore configuration. I will hit the create TLS context. TLS context has been created. We can see that we have Keystore detail. So this is the domain. We can use subdomain here. And this is the Truststore. So we have configured the one client. And the client name is abcinc.in. So whenever we invoke a API that is deployed on this private space, ingress controller will authenticate the client and it will check for certificate, and certificate should have this common name. Client will be validated using this Truststore, and the client need to present the certificate that should match with this value in the certificate common name or subject alternative name. Now I will deploy application. So let me go to the studio. Here I have one simple application. It have path/hello log and message is hello from Mule. Let me export it. Application has been exported. Now I will go to the runtime manager, deploy application. I will give the name hello app. I will choose the file hello app. I will deploy in this private space. I will go to ingress, and this will use this endpoint. Subdomain is generated using app name, and sanjeev.tripathi.in is a vanity domain. I will deploy application. Hello app has been uploaded. Hello app has been deployed successfully. Let me go to the applications. Hello app. And here I can click this public endpoint. I got the warning because I have configured the self-signed certificate. So server is asking for a certificate to authenticate the client, and I need to select the proper certificate. I do not have certificate. This is my server side certificate. This is not a client side certificate. So if I'm selecting this, I'm getting access denied. Server is trying to authenticate the client, and because it's not able to authenticate, I'm getting the access denied, and I'm not able to get the hello app response. So I need to create now a Truststore and Keystore, and I need to invoke using a client. It could be Spring Boot client or Mule client. In this case, I'm going to use the Mule client. Here I have created a application. Path is mTLS. Is logging mTLS flow entered. And here I'm invoking the hello app. Path is /hello. And this is the host name, hello app.sanjeevtripathi.in, and that's what we have here. So I provide this value. And in protocol, I'm using HTTPS. Now I need to configure the TLS configuration. So you can use the none or the edit inline or global reference. I will use edit inline. So I need to provide this Truststore configuration and Keystore configuration. Truststore will be used to authenticate the server. You can ignore also by clicking insecure. But server side, it needs a certificate. So we need to send a certificate with the request. So I need to configure the Keystore configuration. So let me go to my notes. So we have created already the client certificate that we already used for Truststore configuration. Now using this private key and this public certificate, I will create a client Keystore. Keystore that client will use. This application will use mTLS client. So I will use the OpenSSL pkcs12 export command, and this is the name of the Keystore. And here I'm providing the public certificate, private key. Keystore will be stored with this name. So I'm going to create the Keystore of type pkcs12 p12 using this command. I will enter the password. I should have the file now. So I got the Keystore, client Keystore of type p12 pkcs12. Now I will create a Keystore of JKS format. So for that, I will use the key tool command, and I'm going to use the import Keystore option. And this is the destination. So file will be created with this name, and it will use this as the input. So input type is this, and alias is client cert. So let me invoke this command to create the Keystore of type JKS. I will enter the destination Keystore password, source Keystore password, and we should have the now Keystore file with JKS type. So we got the Keystore, client Keystore. We have generated the client Keystore. Now I need to generate the Truststore because we need the Truststore for configuration right here. Here we'll configure Truststore, and down here we'll configure the Keystore. So for Truststore, this will be used for validating the server certificate. So I will use the public certificate of server. So when we executed this command, we got this file server side certificate, and we are going to use that. So I'm going to use this command to create the Truststore using -import option. This is alias, and this is the input public certificate, and the name of the Truststore will be this. So let me run this command. Password. We can ignore this error. Re-enter password. Trust this certificate, yes. So we got the client Truststore as well. So we'll use this for authenticating the server from client side, and this Keystore we will use to present the certificate to the server, to the private space ingress, and private space ingress will authenticate the certificate using Truststore that we configured here. Now I will go to the studio. I will go to the configuration. Let me first remove these old files, delete, and I will go to here and I will copy this client Truststore in source main resources, and I also need a client Keystore. I will store in same place server main resources. So we have latest client store and Truststore. Let me go to the request configuration. I will configure the Truststore. File name is client.truststore. Password I will enter. Type JKS. And I will not enter the Keystore configuration because I will test it without configuring the Keystore, without presenting the client certificate. Will be able to retrieve the response from Hello app or not. So I will click OK. I will run this. Application is started. Now I will go to the browser. HTTP localhost 8081/mTLS. Click enter. We got the error remotely closed, failed. So our request failed. Let's check the error. So we got the error remotely closed, connectivity issue, and let's check here possible SSL TLS handshake. That means we are getting the error because of TLS handshake issue. Because we are not presenting any certificate, that's why we are getting the SSL TLS handshake issue, and that is causing connectivity issue. But the real reason is handshake is not happening because we don't have any Keystore configured. So client is not presenting any certificate to the private space ingress controller. So I have to go to request, configuration, and here now I will configure the Keystore. I will select the type JKS, path, I will give the path client.keystore, alias, and we gave this alias client cert, password, I will enter password. So we have configured the Keystore. Click OK. Save it. Now I will stop the application. Run it again. Application has been deployed. I will go to the browser. Now I will run it again. This time we got the response. We configured the Keystore properly. We have provided this Keystore, and that's why we are getting the response from Hello app. So if we will not configure the Keystore, or we will configure the wrong Keystore, wrong certificate, then we will get the connectivity error due to handshake issue. But we have correct certificate and we present correct certificate, then we will get the response. So certificate that we presenting should match this Truststore that we configured here, so the client can be authenticated. Once we have right certificate, we are getting the response. So this is how you can configure the mutual TLS, configuring the Keystore and Truststore both. Keystore will be used to encrypt the inbound traffic to the private space, but it will be only one-way authentication. But using Truststore, we can also authenticate the client. This is all in this video. If you like this video, please subscribe the channel and hit the like button. Thanks for watching. Thank you very much.